you. Yes, you. This is Usayome Sale from Ways Prime Time. Now, we appreciate your continued support for watching our content, following us across all our social media. But we've noticed, for those of you watching us on YouTube, 88.5% of you who watch our content aren't subscribed to our channel. Why? Now, if you are enjoying our content, you enjoy our shows, and you want to stay updated on all things Ways, it's time to hit that subscribe button below. Now, subscribing isn't just for you. It's for the growth of our channel. It helps us get bigger and better. With your support, we can continue to bring even more intriguing and exciting content. How about you subscribing right now and being a part of our community?
Good morning and welcome to Ways Breakfast. Hashtag what are you saying this beautiful Wednesday morning. On this platform, we're dedicated to amplifying the vibrant voices of the youth towards matters that concerns us all. And you best know, if it's of great importance, we're definitely talking about it. It's my absolute pleasure to anchor today's segment. My name is Oluchi Precious Omenka, and of course, I've got the one and only Okikiola Tairo Jalupo on set today. Good morning, best girl. The girl with the attitude. Good morning, how are you?
Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, Oluchi.
Thank you. Good morning, the world.
Good morning to myself.
It's a beautiful Wednesday morning. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, very calm. Although I don't know if it's maybe Banque that maybe that's the area that I live in, but NEPA refused to give us light just because of small breeze. NEPA said.
Funny how is that I really wanted the rain to fall because it's been very hot recently. And then when the rain fell, the cool air I felt was just very brief. Afterwards, the heat came back. Almost like you thought I went, I'm still here. And it's so funny how we have to survive, but I'm glad to be here today on the show.
And then one funny thing, I'm not sure many people know that we are now on the longer days and shorter nights period.
Longer days and shorter nights?
Yes. Yesterday, as at almost 5 o'clock, it was still sunny. So that's how you can tell that we're in there. And then this morning, as at 6 o'clock, it was already bright.
It was already bright. Well,
Yes.
I don't know how to count those stuff. As far as I get my normal hours of sleep, I'm fine. All right, we're going to take a short break, and of course, we'll be reflecting on significant events that shaped our world. We're highlighting two fascinating milestones, which will be displayed shortly. And we want to know your thoughts on these historical milestones. Now, before I forget, today we want to give a shout out to a major fan of ours who is celebrating his birthday today, Mr. Godwin Honor. We see you, we hear you. We're super happy every time you get to comment on our show, and we are welcoming you to your best year yet. Of course, we want to see and hear of your comments today. Okay, do you have anything to say to Mr. Godwin?
Yes, happy birthday. Oluchi already said it all. Happy birthday. Welcome to your best year yet. This is your year of success, upliftment, everything great, everything marvelous, everything big,
Amen.
big. Yes. Amen to that.
Go and prosper, Mr. Godwin.
Go forth
and replenish the earth.
and multiply.
Of course. Remember, you're the main ingredient in this conversation. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of our topics. Our phone lines are open. Please call us on 070-2500-7749 or 070-1424-2420 and subscribe to our YouTube channel and be a major fan just like Mr. Godwin Honor. All right, we'll take this short break, and when we return, we're heading straight to the headline and, of course, the stories we have for today. Stay with us. Welcome back from the break, and thank you for sticking with us. This is still Ways Breakfast, the youth inclined breakfast show where we open up different conversations ranging from politics to governance, mental health, tech innovation, finance, and what have you. And today is Wednesday. Usually, our Wednesday segment is for mental health and health conversation. But before we get into the topic of today, which is about addressing youth and traumatic situation, let's see what the Nigerian papers have today. We have The Guardian and The Punch, and of course, Okiki will be starting with The Guardian newspaper.
Like I like to say, if I don't give you, how will you take it? And that's why I'm starting with the Guardian newspaper. The headline here reads, Nigeria walks a tightrope as IMF sees higher inflation, lower oil prices on page 6. And we have where IMF GDP growth projections for 2025 in percentage had India as the highest with 6.2%, China with 4.0%, Nigeria with 3.0%, the United States with 1.8%, Russia with 1.5%, and the Republic of South Africa with 1.0%. We also have inflation rate with US at 3%, Nigeria at 26.5%, actually the highest. The Republic of South Africa at 3.8%, India at 4.2%, China at 0%, Russia at 9.3%. It's very funny how China has no inflation rate with all the percentage that the United States has slashed on them. But on the right-hand side, we also have stories that says Plateau MBA advocates self-defense against attacks. Below that, we have coalition urges NAS on bill to reverse seats for women in parliament. We also have another story that reads, federal government targets $4 billion import reduction via proposed steel incentive bill. On the left-hand side, we have armed herders kill 11 in fresh Benue attack as Ribadu defends federal government securities efforts. Below that story, we have PDP sacks Bayelsa, Edo executives appoints interim officials. Above the mass, we have custom records 1.75 trillion naira revenue in Q1 of 2025 and exceeds target by 106 billion naira. The monarch-backed African Pope has 9 stand to succeed Francis. The last story here reads, poliomyelitis outbreak hits 9 states in Nigeria, says UNICEF. You see, Nigeria taking some, I don't know whether we like, I can't say that we like diseases, but for some reasons, Nigeria always seems to get into the first set of people that always get these unknown diseases. And I always wonder how we barely can handle simple things like malaria, like cholera. We're still battling cholera as it is. But we now have new variants of, we just had diphtheria just some months ago, and we don't even know if that has been
completely gone
or even under control. But now we have polymyelitis. I don't even know if I can pronounce correctly, but polymyelitis, if that's what I'm seeing here. And it has now been recorded in 9 states. 9 states already. That means it has started to spread. What is Nigeria doing about it, or what's the government doing about controlling these things? From the story, is they are just highlighting that they have found out that this disease exists, but there's not been measures or how to even tackle it per se. So I don't know all the variants of diseases that are, or ailments that are available in Nigeria that Nigeria keeps picking and grabbing. And I don't know if it's the weather, I don't know if it's our land, I don't know if it's I don't know if it's our diet, our lifestyle. I can't tell, but something just always happens when it comes to new variants of different kind of diseases, with Nigeria just raising their hands to catch it. You know, it's to catch money or catching flights. We're always catching.
But somehow I take a different stance to that, and that's because maybe discussing with some health professionals and reading the news over time, I think that when it comes to certain outbreaks like this, even though we are at the forefront of catching them, like you've mentioned, I think we're also at the forefront of escalating them so that immediate, remedies and action can come to place. I mean, remember when we had coronavirus, the Ebola virus, even this diphtheria or diphtheria virus that, you know, was in a particular school. There's something that happens with escalating it quickly, right? And it gets the right bodies to be involved in it. So somehow, even though we have not really gotten it totally, but I feel like that alone helps to combat it. And Nigerians just have this survival gene in us.
They survive.
It makes us just go through all of this and become even much better. But I think this is a very good call to the Ministry of Health and, you know, to disease control bodies that this is high time we start taking certain things even as more important. And of course, it's not just unique to us. Several nations, developed nations, world big nations, they also experience all of this and, you know, they find a way through it.
I wanted to quickly talk about something that's also, it's not on the headline news, but I feel that it relates to the topic we're having today, which the Guardian newspaper's headline, one of the stories here says, to restore the happiness of Nigerians is doable. And let me just quickly read what they said. The recently released World Happiness Report of 2025, which ranks Nigeria number 105 out of 147 countries in the world, is depressing, but not surprising to even casual observers of events unfolding in the country. The report, as inaccurate as it might be, is disheartening because it indicates vividly the deteriorating living conditions in Nigeria over the past years. Nostalgically, Nigeria was the happiest country globally only 22 years ago in 2003, as recorded by the same body measuring global happiness among countries. That the country slid to such a lowly position speaks volume about how the factors that inspire happiness in Nigeria are far disappearing over the years. Clearly, both the government and the people of Nigeria are starkly reminded that things are not the best and the country is not where it can be. It is a challenge that requires sincere and concerted efforts by the government at all levels to revert. In particular, government officials, starting from the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, should be told that Nigerians are not deceived by their pretext that all is well, nor are the citizens blinded to the fact that only a few are enjoying the bulk of the Commonwealth of Nigeria at the expense of the hapless masses. The World Happiness Report 2025 shows Finland as the happiest country in the world for the 8th consecutive year. Libya emerged as the highest ranked nation in Africa, securing the 79th position, surpassing its neighbors in life challenges. I like the way this thing is going. Life challenges and satisfaction and societal well-being despite ongoing challenges. Nordic countries include Denmark, Iceland, and Sweden, also remain at the top in the same order. The United States, which fell out of the top 20 for the first time since last year, now ranks 24th, having reached its highest position of 11th back in 2012. But the summary of everything is that they're now saying that we are no longer happy. Happiness is now fleeing away from us, and it's so sad to hear that we used to be the happiest 22 years ago. And if I take out 22 years out of my current age, it's almost like, the last time I was happy was when I was actually a child.
I'm saying when I was a toddler.
Since they born me, I never rest. And then so it's
I guess
obvious.
This song from Fido becomes very relevant. The joy is coming. Because at this point, that's all we need. But it's a very terrible decline. From first or second position to 100 and something.
105.
No, that's a very, very terrible decline.
Out of 147. If I was the one that brought that kind of result home, my mom would have beat.
I think we should start learning from Finland. If you are taking best in happiness for 8 consecutive times, what are you doing in that your nation? I think you should go to a master class at this point and say different nations come together. Let me give you the tips and tricks to have to become a happy nation. But I think, you know, beyond this, people should start learning to find their happiness beyond their present conditions. Because, I mean, for 22 years, this is what has been happening. You cannot keep remaining like that. You have to find a way to survive and live through each day and each challenge. Because you don't even know what's waiting for you tomorrow. You don't know the next story we're going to see on The Guardian or The Punch. Exactly. And thank God it somehow aligns with today's conversation, how you can get your happiness beyond your present condition. Let's see what The Punch say, if they have another ranking for us. The major headline, sadly, is on killings. It says, IG deploys special anti-bandit squads nationwide. Bandits strike again, kill 18 in Kwara, Benue. Northern governors talk tough. Nigeria's rebased inflation to hit 37% in 2026, says IMF. 8 banks spend 4.61 trillion naira on salaries and operations. 18 Africans among cardinals to elect new pope. Senate lambasts Bakare over rubber stamp remark. Flight disruptions likely over NIMET workers' strike. Stray bullet kills 16-year-old at Lagos anti-cultism walk. Above the major headline, we see emergency row. Fubara may shift ground after Tinubu's UK meeting. The one I want to talk about is the one that has to do with the bank story. I think it was on Friday where Godwin and I discussed a trending issue about a particular worker who was lamenting about working in a commercial bank for 15 years and not seeing any reasonable, outcome financially now from it. And we're just looking at that sector. And I was telling God's Beauty that I think banking industry has changed, honestly. Even though there are some redundancies here and there are some things that have been upgraded. I mean, we're having some of the commercial banks now venturing into fintech and microfinance. So there's a lot of diversification and more money keeps coming in. And of course, in banking, it works a lot with hierarchy and, position. It's as high as you go, that's how much you could get, right? And so looking at everything and corroborating it with this story that says 8 banks spend 4.6 trillion on salaries and operation, it shows that's a lot. Let me just read what the Punch has to say here. It says the total expenses of 8 Nigerian banks soared to 4.61 trillion in 2024, driven by increase in both personnel and operating costs. And the data reveals a 107.8% rise from 2.2 trillion in 2023, highlighting the growing financial pressure on the banking sector. And in the period under review, First Holdco PLC reported a total of 568.3 billion in operating expenses and what have you. So I don't want to go through all the figures and dots and percentage that they mentioned, but this also shows that there is no sector in our economy at this point that they are not feeling it. As I wanted to use this particular colloquial word that we use, that is reaching everybody. So every sector definitely has, their pain points based on the economic standpoint currently. And I think at this point I think a lot of diversification will come at this point. I've watched a lot of people talking about growing wealth and everything. And at this time, you don't grow wealth by having just one stream of income. You grow wealth by diversity. On savings and
savings, basically.
Yes, on investment, on having diversities in income. And the implication of this kind of story shows that there will be a lot of strain in more operating costs in banks. That means more staffs will be laid off, right? Mm-hmm. And in fact, the pressure could even come to us as customers. We could start paying more bills for, the charges and everything. ATM cards. So eventually, it gets to everyone. And some of these problems have to be sorted from the foundation, because if we begin to talk about it from the top, we're not addressing the major issue. And that's all the story I have. Well, the other story that got me a bit sad was this one on the killing story, but I couldn't get the whole details. I might not comment a whole lot about it, but it still talks on the fact that there's cultism in some of our schools, and cultism is still a major reason why some people are losing their life. If today's conversation is focused on youth and trauma, we can't take away cultism, we can't take away bullying, we can't take away some of these societies in youth environments that also somehow contribute, to youth experiencing trauma and all of that. So this is where we draw the curtains on the headline stories this morning with The Punch and The Guardian, and we'll take a short break now. When we come back, our topic for today is youth and trauma. How do we really cope? Now, that's a question I'm posing to you. That means I want to hear your thought, opinion, and, your conversation as well on this particular topic. So feel free to go on all our social media handles at Official Upgrade TV on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, on X, and on Facebook. And please drop your comment. After this short break, we'll return right here with our hot topic. Stay with us. Welcome back. So our topic for today is youth and trauma. How do we really cope? And thankfully, the people discussing this today are young people, myself inclusive, and Okikiola Taiwo Jalupon, who looks like she's 60, but deep down, she's just 15 years old. In a world that's constantly evolving, today's youth are facing unprecedented emotional battles, from rising unemployment to social media pressure, family instability, violence, and the aftermath of a global pandemic. Trauma has become an almost silent epidemic among young people. According to 2023 UNICEF report, nearly 1 in 7 adolescents aged 10 to 19 globally is estimated to live with a diagnosed mental health condition. In Nigeria, while official numbers are scarce due to stigma and underreporting, the 2022 NOI polls survey found that 7 out of 10 young Nigerians have experienced one form of emotional or psychological distress in the past year alone. And this trauma ranges from domestic violence, sexual abuse, bereavement, to more subtle ones like being raised in emotionally unavailable homes, academic pressure, economic hardship, or even peer betrayal. And social media, which was once seen as a tool for connection, is now increasingly tied to digital trauma, from cyberbullying to cancel culture to the pressure of performative living. And yet, many young people continue to suffer in silence, hiding behind the filters, humor, and ambition. The big question remains, how are we really coping? Are we healing or just hiding? And let's see how we can have this conversation as, experiential as possible, beyond the theory. Let's talk about our experiences. So, Okiki, the girl that is young at heart, but old in face. Just kidding. When looking at this whole conversation, I know I have a thing of making things light, even though they can be sensitive. I'm going to work on that. But this is a very, very critical conversation. Trauma for youth. And looking at the record so far, one thing that is very sad is that for Nigerians, we have a lot of underreporting. So, I mean, other surveys in different countries can give you the figures and the fact and the statistics, but for us, we always have problems with our data. And a topic as critical or as sensitive as this, it can even be very far-fetched because you're putting cultural background to it. I mean, how many people will even come out to let you know that, oh, I'm facing this emotional, troubles and all of that. So that's already a problem. The fact that we cannot even get the exact figures of what's really going on mentally for youth. But let's start the conversation by trying to understand the word trauma, right? So, I mean, we're not psychiatrists or we're not clinical psychologists. So when you hear the word trauma, what comes to mind?
Okay, so I can't totally define trauma in a way that would not sound extreme, but I've seen trauma as a very big issue where it keeps coming back some way, somehow. Sometimes you feel that you're over something, you're over someone, you're over a situation, and then before you know it, someone or something, a situation can come up where it looks like it's repeating itself. You know when you naturally have deja vu, but now you now see that deja vu is happening like a trauma over again, where maybe for somebody broke your heart. Let's look at that. Somebody broke your heart and you found a way to move on from that. You moved on from that. You now met a new person. And then that's where I always say that healing actually comes when you meet another person. It doesn't come while you are single, while you think that, okay, I'm over this person now, I'm facing my healing journey. Yeah, healing actually starts when you find a new person, when the person starts telling you the same thing that the previous person told you, like, yeah, that kind of thing. Your eyes light up, your smile is beautiful, and somebody told you that before. And the first thing that's coming to your mind is that I'm supposed to have been over this last person. This thing is bringing back trauma from the reason why it's going to sound like trauma is because the person gave you a bad experience. So now you're thinking about it that it's about to go down again. This person that is saying it is somebody told me the same thing before. In another 3 months, it's going to happen again. And so situations, conditions can make one feel that you have gotten over trauma, but you still experience trauma. And I'm not sure that it's something that one can completely go over. And then that's where the word coping comes in, where you can now manage when those things reoccur in your head, in your heart, physically. You can now manage it by finding your way around it and making sure that it's not a repeat, right, of the last one. Or then you can now put up a face. We are not overly emotional about it, or you're not reacting in a way that is irrational. Or then you can quickly leave the situation. For example, if you were raped before, and then you're about to see that same situation happening again, either because you were in the wrong place again at the wrong time, you can quickly excuse yourself. You can quickly find a way to escape that situation so that the same thing that happened to you before will not happen again. So there's so many coping mechanisms. First is leaving the place. Second is managing your emotions when that thing happens all over again, or when you think that is happening, because that's what trauma can do. You think that this thing is about to happen all over again, and then I feel that that's my own contribution when it comes to coping with that.
Very beautiful way of starting the conversation. And I just want to comment a little on what you said. I mean, having to say that healing comes from meeting someone else. I've heard other opinions about things like this, that if you do not heal properly, or if you do not, close a wound and you meet someone else, there's every tendency that you're going to be reinventing the same problems again, because you have not sorted whatever made that past situation to be that way. But I did jot down some things to really open up what trauma is. Because to me, when I think of trauma, what comes firstly is that feeling of helplessness, and more broadly, feeling stuck in a situation. That's what trauma is. Stuck meaning that, oh, there was something that probably happened before. There's always like, something that happened before that now causes me to remain stuck and helpless in a particular situation. So let me read what I got here. It says trauma refers to a deeply distressing or disturbing experience that overwhelms a person's ability to cope, leaving them feeling helpless, fearful, or emotionally shattered. In psychology, trauma is defined as an emotional response to a terrible event like an accident, rape, or natural disaster. However, longer-term reactions include unpredictable emotions, flashbacks, strained relationships, and even physical trauma. Now, there are different ways to look through this, and that's why I said we're not discussing this as clinical psychologists, because they can give you some medical terms and some really, extreme definitions to these things, or beyond the surface. But I just want to look at this from the everyday angle. And let's even say we're even using the word loosely, because many times in Nigeria context today, we use certain words very loosely, like PTSD. And it's say, oh, I have PTSD.
My mental health.
My mental health and everything. So maybe sometimes trauma is also that loose word that people fly everywhere. But we still cannot deny that, even though we might not understand the whole intricacies of what it means to actually be in a traumatic position, some youth still face some of this. And a major cause of this would be homes and schools. So my question now is, do you think that homes and school create a safe space for young people to express emotional pain? And I'll start by answering. I think generally, no. Generally, no. Culturally, we are in a background that needs a lot of reorientation. Because if this reorientation don't happen, that feeling of being stuck is going to happen over and over again. So the school and the home is usually the first contact of a young person, of a child. I mean, before a child gets into the school, the child was firstly at home. I mean, in these days, we're having parents have their children stay with them even longer before they get into school, like before, where 1 year old, they're already putting them in school. But now, some of them stay up to 2-3 years before going into school, right? And then into school, that's another world that is major to them, and they come back home. So home and school ought to be that kind of solace where I can be able to develop a healthy mental, I don't know how to put it now, mental life. But eventually it becomes the trigger, the catalyst to having a deteriorated mental health. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Yeah. So I think, honestly, generally now, I wouldn't say home and schools have helped to make people emotionally express their pain. Let's look at the Nigerian setting, for example. I mean, in the home that we're in today, I can give you some experiences growing up. Now, this is not to paint anybody in the wrong way, but I think that Nigerian children, youth, adolescents, and teenagers have a problem with expressing pain. Why? Because if you're at home and you probably are feeling stuck or overwhelmed, or what's this word there's this word that we throw away very lightly. I've forgotten it now. Burnt out. Let me use the word burnt out, maybe from school activity. And you're like, I don't want to go to school tomorrow. I don't want to go to school this week. I just don't like what's happening. I'm being bullied. And you report that to a Nigerian home. The first the first thing you're going to get is a look that is something wrong with your head, many times in your native language. So it's almost like it's not an option for you to express emotional pain. Firstly, because emotional pain is not even understood by this parent. What do you mean you're having depression? What do you mean your mental health? What do you mean you are feeling burnt out? What do you mean you don't want to talk to anybody? You just want to be on your own. They'll start, equating it to evil spirit. I cast out that spirit from you right now in the name of Jesus. And all of these things. So it shows that the home that we have currently in the Nigerian setting doesn't give room for young people to be able to express emotional pain. Because when you do, firstly, you're expressing it to people that don't even understand emotional pain. They are ignorant towards emotional pain. And two, because you already have an idea of how it will be accepted. I mean, today I hear stories of this younger generation. I'm still young, why am I talking old? But some people today will claim that, oh, I love to talk to my mom and my dad and my best friends. I can tell them about, I think there was someone, I'm going to use this story. I'm trying to be very careful. So my mom will not say, oh, this has been in your mind, precious. But honestly, growing up, I couldn't see myself talking to my mother about relationships, like, oh, a boy in school liked me. I feel like if I tell my parents or anyone elderly in my house that there's a boy in school that liked me, I feel like I'll be the one that'll be punished for it. Like, why does a boy
even like you to
why
start
does
with?
a boy like you? And this is not just me. I'm sure I'm talking to a number of people that grew up in conservative homes. In fact, I know somebody that said that if a boy is looking at me in a certain way, I'm in trouble. Because my mother will feel like, you know why that boy is looking at you that way. And then you start facing problem at home. Thankfully, I didn't have any extreme cases of maybe an abuse or any of that would have made me not even want to report. But, having that kind of relationship where you are careful, you're walking on eggshells when you don't talk about critical things, can also make you not open up when you are now faced with the distressing ones. For example, there are people that have undergone rape, different abuse, verbal sexual abuse in school. Different things happen to them in school, but they can't talk to their parents about it because they feel like they won't understand what's going on. And that's where this trauma, this pain keeps accumulating because there is no one to firstly express this with. Now, that's home. Let's talk about school, for example. These days, we're having teachers and educators and instructors who are mostly just concerned with the cognition. I've said it many times on this show. We are not having people that are, taking cognizance of every developmental phase of a child. The fact that you have people in your classroom is not just for them to have A's and B's in their mathematics and in their English, but how is their mental well-being? I know sometimes people feel like, oh, that's the job of the counselor. Now, guess what? Do we really have counselors in schools? Do we have psychologists in schools? I did study guidance and counseling, and the statistics that was chunked out to us was really discouraging for many of us to even go into this profession fully. Because usually, if you have a class of 250 students, you also have at least 4 counselors constantly on those people's cases. But what do we see? We see a CRS teacher that they will just plunge in and say, oh, just be the advisor of 1,000.
The religious counselor.
That's not it. So it shows as if the part of catering for people's emotional pain is not even the responsibility of teachers or even parents. I've said a number of things. Let me let you talk.
Okay, so you've said a lot of things that I relate to, but I can say that I lived in the best of both worlds, which is growing up, my parents sort of let you say, especially my dad, let you say whatever it is that you wanted to say. And
I was careful.
And then when you say those things, if it's something extreme that needs precaution, he would take the time to explain to you why those words are not what you should be saying at the time. If it's something that you should boldly say, he will tell you, oh, why are you shying away from saying boldly say it? I always tell people that growing up, my dad used to buy us dresses, underwears, even made sure that my brothers grew up knowing how to buy us sanitary pads, caring for us when we were
sanitary pad is like purchasing a weapon.
Well, that's why I said that I had the best of both worlds, where I knew that I grew up with my parents being expressive with themselves, then also training us to be expressive. So I now decided to go and live with someone. And then I found out that it doesn't work that way there. And then anything, just saying good morning, oh, I feel so tired today, was a problem. Because why did you wake up and you're suddenly tired? They'll ask, what did you do with your life over the midnight?
Young girl like
young girl like me. And then I now had to struggle with putting that, suppressing those expressions, waiting for when am I going to be free? When am I going to be released? So I started thinking that I was caged for some way. So because the way I saw that family setting was like, you can't even say that you are hungry when you are actually hungry. You have to wait for whenever food was ready. And if food is ready at 10:30 when you're supposed to have had breakfast at maybe 8 o'clock, you're going to wait and eat it at that 10:30. And you also have to be quick because 30 minutes is the max that you get. You can't take too long there. But then at home, when I was growing up, it was more like when you start eating for too long, they're asking, are you okay? Are you eating slow because maybe you have something with your mouth that you're not saying? Are you unwell? Are you this? Are you that? So I struggled a lot leaving that space where I was free to
express yourself.
Yes, to express myself. So now going to somewhere that was very conservative. Even cases where I was like, I feel faint. Evil spirit. Just like when you said, as I said, while you were talking, it was like I was reliving certain experiences that I've had with other people, with other family. But personally, in my own home, you are free to say what you want to say. And I was also free at some point to tell my mom. Till date, I still discuss with my mom about relationship, about crushes and all those stuff like that. And then when we talk about
now my mom wants to be discussing such.
Because you're marriageable age. Can
you imagine?
She wants you to marry.
I had a question when I was 13. I wanted to talk to you about it, but I'm like, hey, what will this woman think of me?
I think fear, just when you mentioned what trauma could be, is also the fear to express yourself. So I feel that one of the ways that we can cope and tackle with it is when I want to say something, I always say that the worst that can happen is a no. The worst that can happen is rejection.
Yes.
So if you don't face that fear at once, how will you get over it? Because one fear will lead to the next one, will lead to the next one, and then you keep piling it up. And at some point, it changes to something that should originally at the base level should have been tackled. But it will now become one thing that we will naturally put a stamp to or a name to. The headache was nothing until somebody named it headache.
Yeah.
So you will now grow up being suppressed, being all, and then you now call yourself that. I'm a sadist, or that's just who I am naturally. I can't just. But the issue started from such a young age. Looking at the schools, I don't know. I don't know. I was a child somehow in school. I remember my mom used to tell me that when I was in primary 2 or something, my teacher used to give us, when she gives us classwork from like 1 to 10, I would tell her outrightly that classwork is too much and I can't do it. And then at first it came with beating, but over time she just realized that this girl says she will not do it and she will not do it. But the funny thing is that she had to write again in my book 1 to 5 and another 1 to 5. And before everybody even does their 1 to 10, I'm done with mine. But because I just felt like that 1 to 10 was too cumbersome for me, and I expressly told her that this was it, she took the initiative, maybe after a few whoops here and there, to say that, okay, maybe this girl, and then she was able to identify intelligence, like, okay, this girl is just doing this thing. At some point, they put my chair at the back, and I was like, nah, I don't want to sit there. I want to sit beside you, and they had to move my chair, and this was in primary 2. Growing up, that's how it just moved on for me. The only time where I felt that I became very reserved or very suppressed was when I got into junior secondary school, and I started to meet different caliber of people, from bullies who started to prey on me because of one thing or the other. Although
I'm sure you looked very small in school.
Extremely small. I fought back eventually. I was able to get my stance back. But at that moment that the thing happened, I became very surprised. I never went out to play. I never wanted to talk to anyone. I just wanted my seat, and then I pushed every other person's seat away from mine. And I can call that
very good way
too.
to end this particular conversation. We've opened up expressing emotional pain and the dynamics of the family and of the school. And the way I'll just end this segment before we go on a short break while waiting for your comment is, I think it's high time, and I'm glad it's happening the younger people that I'm seeing, I'm not exactly old, but I think I have people that are younger than me, seeing that some children are being raised to become more assertive. Looking at your example, I wasn't that assertive child. I wasn't dull. I was a smart kid.
But
if I
they
would
called
say
it
so.
stubbornness. You're calling it assertiveness.
It's
but
called
they
assertive today, and that's how children ought to be trained. Now,
Mm-hmm.
there's a difference. Confidence might look like pride, and that's why many parents want to shy away from having their children become so expressive, because they feel like other parents will say, this is your child, you didn't train them well. Why is she talking like this? Why is she
Mm-hmm.
opening? I'll tell you something that happened somewhere that I know. There were two children that were having an argument. My friend told me of this story. So one of the child did something to the other person, and it was almost like bullying in that sense. I didn't know what the other child said to the other child. He said, don't do that to me again. And I was like, that shows you're already knowing what should be done and what shouldn't be done. You're already taking a stance on right and wrong, and you are being bold to exclaim that. But today, the stories we hear is when they meet you and you run home, your parents be like, why didn't you fight back? No, how about learning to also have conversations with people? I like the experience you mentioned. You weren't comfortable with a particular method of teaching. And the teacher, thankfully, so not many teachers will take that initiative.
That's what I said after some whooping.
Exactly. But see, some will keep whooping you to their kingdom come because you will do it how I want
To
it.
their kingdom come, I was planning to also complain.
Exactly. But that's very amazing. So when we come back from this break, we've looked at parents and schools. Now I want to look at social media as a means of young people escaping trauma. Please want to hear your opinions, your thoughts, your experiences on this particular topic. And we'll be back after the show.
Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word. Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I need to see light for my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need light.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we'll bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria's energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we'll analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business.
All right, it's been a very insightful and heartfelt conversation with Okikiola Taiwo-Jalukwu. I guess we lived in different worlds, because while Okiki was very free to express her thoughts and conversations at home, I was being very careful not to step on eggshells. But we've looked at the whole family and school dynamics, and now we want to talk about social media. If you're just joining us, we're trying to uncover trauma and how youth manage to escape through all of this and just manage and cope, because honestly, it doesn't look like something that can be sorted, totally, but you can manage and cope with it. So now, social media is supposed to be an escape, right? Yet it seems to be a major source of trauma for many people. I mean, social media age, I've heard someone I respect a lot telling me that I do not envy this generation of social media, because it seems as though it has caused more trouble for people than when people didn't even have these gadgets and technology. And it's a very sad reality, because something that was meant to be for good is now an agent to make people be in depression. So how do you think we can balance this digital world and our mental health?
So personally, I've had a phase where I deleted my WhatsApp for a whole year. And it was like, I knew that I was going to lose contacts, I was going to lose chat, but I was overwhelmed by WhatsApp statuses. I was overwhelmed by information. I was just overwhelmed by a lot of things. And I just felt like the first thing that I need to do is first know how to live without this thing. And so I deleted the WhatsApp. And a few weeks into it, everybody was like, hey, I want to send you something. I said, send it to my email. Don't send it to my WhatsApp. And then I put my email out there that, okay. But it narrowed down the kind of messages that I would get, because as at that time, it was now just work emails. For my friends who knew that I was off WhatsApp, they could send some hello, hi on the email. And I was replying like it was a normal text. I was having
That's
the
so
same
stressful.
social media.
Email.
It might be stressful, but for me, it was like trying to get my mental health
Health
back in order.
So how was the experience eventually?
It was amazing. After 6 months being away from WhatsApp, I had to do another 6 months. Like, maybe I don't even need this WhatsApp to start. Maybe I don't even need this social media to start with. And coming back to social media was that when my work now had to do with being online on WhatsApp. And then that's when I installed WhatsApp back, and I was like, okay, let me start reaching out to certain people. I wanted some people who I didn't even want them to chat me anymore. Get over the fact that I was available on WhatsApp, or I was available to chat with. And these were the people that some of them were trying to pressure me into doing things that were not in my value system. Some were posting things that would damn your day.
Yes.
So I had to take myself, apart from just deleting them, muting them and all of that stuff, I had to intentionally remove myself from that space. Social media is somewhere where if you don't completely delete your account or do something, you're still going to be indirectly linked to that thing. The fact that messages can pop up, you can still be tempted to click on it. Let me just take a quick look. I'm going to leave there. It won't hurt, but then deleting the account in general will sort of have to take you through the process of installing, restoring, all of that stuff. So for me, coping with social media trauma or social media trying to invite trauma in my head is getting over that space, taking a break from that space. As much as social media can bring trauma, it can also ease trauma. Sometimes when you find other people who have also experienced the same thing that you have, it can just give you that glimmer of hope that, okay, maybe I could cope with this person has been able to successfully cope with being sexually assaulted, and now have started a foundation, is now helping other women and this and that, and then you could also volunteer to also want to be part of that. Or maybe somebody who has battled with drug abuse before and has now gone through rehabilitation and is now doing well. So you could still be in that situation, or you have been able to stay sober for some months, but you're now struggling to keep it up, and you find somebody on social media who has told you, okay, I've been sober for 10 years, and then you can now link yourself with such stories. So the balance will be that be able to cite what works for you. Be conscious of your mental health. That's what my mental health needs is either being away from this thing or finding people who have the same story as I do and have been able to cope or survive it. So it's just I think one of our guests was talking about anchor. Putting your anchor in things that matter. Mm-hmm. So if putting my anchor in finding people who are survivors of being sexually assaulted or going through drug abuse and all of that stuff is on social media.
Economic problems.
Yes, or economic problems.
There are survivors like that.
Yes, there are survivors like that now. Some people were poor their whole life, and all, at some point they're looking for that light at the end of the tunnel, or light at the end of the tunnel, and then they have to now look for people who have these experiences, who have gone through all of these bad things that could ever happen to, from being orphaned to coping, living with aunties, living with uncles that were bad to you, and now becoming the topmost whoever in their life. So just throwing your anchor into people who have been able to successfully go over or survive these issues. And if you feel that you can't find that, or that's not the thing that you need, that even after seeing all these things, it doesn't work for you, please delete your account and then go and find a way
to an island,
naturally heal yourself. People don't also know the power in healing yourself beyond looking out for who can heal you. It's also that there has to be some internal healing yourself in that sense. I think I've said too much. But then internal healing before now throwing it out there that you need help.
You need help. Very interesting. I like how you brought a bit of balance to social media. So you not just throw away the water and the baby, as they say. You didn't make it look like, oh, social media is evil. But honestly, I'll still say that the cons of social media and amplifying trauma outweighs the pros of it. It does outweigh. I know you've mentioned how that, people have been able to get solace from social media because they can see examples of people who have survived certain traumatic experiences that they can relate with. But at the end of the day, even when that happens, it just takes one trigger on that same social media platform to be back on ground zero. Like, it takes so much to build your mental health on social media, right, than to destroy it. I mean, to build can take me looking through foundation testimonials. Like, oh, so I'm not the only one in this world. But it just takes one post from someone who is very inconsiderate, from someone who is living in a very unrealistic world, to put out something, and then people are back to ground zero. Now, the major villain, I would say, is making people still be in this web of trauma, especially in the social media space, is comparisons. I mean, social media has shown us that comparison has made people deteriorate mentally. Why? Because you are seeing an alternative to what life really looks like, even without knowing the intricacies or how things actually, form to become that. But somewhere in your mind, you feel like your own present reality is not it. And
sorry to cut you.
Okay.
Everything that you have mentioned is how it's a personal thing. Your mind, your experiences, comparing yourself to other people. That's why I was mentioning, if you don't look inwards, there's really nothing that you can do. I always say that you cannot shame the shameless, but it could have different meanings to different people. But personally, when I say you cannot shame the shameless, if you have billions, if you have been able to make billions, whether legally or illegally, I'm unfazed. I don't want to know how you did it. Even if I care to know how you did it, I'm looking at where I am currently, my current phase. Anytime I'm talking to anybody, when they tell me that, can you do this? I'll say, according to my current status,
I can't do it.
I can't do it. Or now, according to my, this is the most I can do.
Why I'm not disputing that. It makes a lot of sense if you have built that internal forte that helps you stand, against any pressure or comparison that comes. We have seen an example of even the strongest of people having to fall. Because you can't take away the fact that we are humans that are conditioned and programmed in a particular way. And eventually, the only difference I see is that you may be able to stay longer than someone who has not even built. But eventually, you will still fall. There will still be that particular trigger that will break that will break every stronghold. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I feel like at this point, comparison is that major. It's just that major thing that we talk about every time. Maybe we have not found a solution to it. And maybe this your own solution should now be what people start considering. Having to exit these spaces. Take conscious blocks of it. Have, times in your life where you are actually away from it. And I think things will still go well. Then it becomes difficult for people who have their lives, their businesses on this particular space. But before we wrap up this conversation, because we have less than 2 minutes, the people talk about different types of coping mechanisms, from journaling to ignoring, from humor to hustle. Do you understand? That's the Nigerian setting that we're in. To cope with certain problem, I just hustle. I just get busy.
To be honest, if I'm heartbroken, every time I've gotten heartbroken, I've gotten more work. I decide to go into more work, which is the hustling thing.
Now that looks like the way forward, and it looks like a way we've been able to handle this trauma. But I'm really wondering how effective it is. Because at the end of the day, if I'm trying to suppress emotions by just having a lot of activities, I would break. One day, it can only take me so far, but it cannot take me very far. Do you get it? Some people use journaling, some use humor. In fact, sometimes I'm really wary about people who seem to laugh uncontrollably, who seem to be the most funniest guy in the room. Kiki is raising her hand. The most funniest guys and
tell me about it and I will laugh. Meanwhile, go and cry at home.
Said that those who, express some, unexplainable laughter, joy, and everything, sometimes you need to question, even though I can have like a different standpoint to that. But I'm just saying, psychologically speaking now. So it seems as though different mechanisms is what we're using to get better. I would not authoritatively say, oh, let's not use those mechanisms anymore. Let's get the real healing. I feel like it can still be a path towards healing, because there are some people like heartbreaks now. They are I don't know, there's this thing with heartbroken people, especially the ladies. That's when they start thinking about their life more. I'm thinking of how I'm going to succeed in this life.
What was I even doing with a man to start with?
I'm going to succeed and show him that I can be the next.
No, not show him personally.
Many times there's a revenge.
That's for the people
motive.
That personally, it's not to show you, it's just to chop more money.
Let me tell you, many times for some people, it's just to let you know what you have missed because you left me. I will be the next richest woman in the world. So that hustle culture comes in. But in ending the show, my passing comment to people coping with trauma, and to youth generally, is to start embracing therapy and counseling, seeking for help. It's not outdated. And I'm saying this from a professional standpoint, partially, to start seeking for help. Gone are those days. I mean, in the university, there are counseling units, there are psychological clinics, places that you can go to and have someone that constantly, caters for you, your affairs, takes notes and follows up on it. But in these days, we feel like, oh, that's cliche, that's cringe, that's not, it's not woke. Why should I be telling somebody about my problem? I think it's a better way to cope, and it even helps whatever natural coping mechanism that we've had gain food. So, Kiki, what's your parting shot as we end?
Parting shot is that I completely agree with you.
What kind of parting shot is that? But thank you for agreeing with me. And that's all we can take for today's show. Trauma is a major thing that plagues a number of young people, but it's not impossible to get over. And thank you to my co-anchor, Okikiola Taiwo Jalukman, for joining me today. Tomorrow is another wonderful day. Join us again by 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. as we discuss important, trendy issues. Have a great day.
Hello, you. Yes, you. This is Usayome Sale from Ways Primetime. Now, we appreciate your continued support for watching our content, following us across all our social media. But we've noticed, for those of you watching us on YouTube, 88.5% of you who watch our content aren't subscribed to our channel. Why? Now, if you are enjoying our content, you enjoy our shows, and you want to stay updated on all things Ways, it's time to hit that subscribe button below. Now, subscribing isn't just for you. It's for the growth of our channel. It helps us get bigger and better. With your support, we can continue to bring even more intriguing and exciting content. How about you subscribing right now and being a part of our community?